He's tall and thin, wears a brown suit, maybe a blue suit. He's got a long brown coat, modern sort of hair, all sticky-uppy.
5 specials that bridge the gap between David Tennant's last series and Matt Smith's first.
My name's the Doctor! Leave this man alone! The Doctor is me!
I mean, numerically there are 5 episodes, but some aren't particularly special, just as the custard curry and chocolate cheesecake I made yesterday did not turn out particularly special.
This day was the day upon which the whole of creation would change forever.
Doctor Who, The Specials.
You could hurt someone with that thing, just put it down.
Oh, you'd like that?
And you find me someone who wouldn't?
David Tennant had said he would do 3 series of Doctor Who. Head writer and executive producer Russell T Davies had said he'd move on at the same time as David Tennant. Stephen Moffat had accepted the job as Davies' replacement, but his show wouldn't be ready before 2010. So, was the BBC just not going to show Doctor Who in 2009?
Can't be.
Just as the show was more popular than it pretty much had ever been. Tennant was leaving to go off and play Hamlet in the theatre, but with a little massaging of the schedules, a number of special episodes would be shown throughout 2009, leading up to the 10th Doctor's eventual regeneration into... hang on, I need my fingers for this. 8, 9, 10, 11... The 11th Doctor.
Before I die of old age, which in my case would be quite an achievement, so congratulations on that, is there anyone else I can talk to?
The scheduling of when various episodes would be broadcast would chop and change before Tennant's final episode, well, then final episode, was eventually shown on New Year's Day of 2010. Each story would pair the Doctor up with a different companion, which in turn explored different dynamics. It would become a victory lap of sorts for David Tennant and for Russell T Davies.
Oh my goodness!
Yes, I am.
The 10th Doctor had been a fast-talking, often manic champion of justice, but for some of these stories, it does appear as though that has gone a bit to his head. The 10th Doctor is all about the hustle culture, where he takes 5-minute naps every 3 hours, works for 23 hours a day, and after a month he has made 2 extra days, which he then flips, works the same hours but backwards. Then he travels back in time, waves his Sonic about, doubles it, flips it, bam, more productive, stretches it, compresses it, spins it on its axis, and then reverses the magnetic polarity. Then do that 10 times a day, run up and down a corridor, stand on your head for 1 hour out of every 3, and by the end of the year, you've gotten 4 years of work done.
And it's all been time for Christmas Day.
First up, the 2008 Christmas special, The Next Doctor, which, spoilers, may or may not feature the actual Next Doctor. The Next Doctor was made as part of the same production block as Series 4, and as such retains a similar feel to most of Tennant's adventures. The Doctor lands in London in the 19th century and almost immediately finds a scary creature.
I'm the Doctor. Simply the Doctor. The one, the only, and the best.
OMG, it's a multi-Doctor story.
OMG!
Or is it? The 10th Doctor isn't recognised by what could be his future self. This is the first clue that things aren't what they seem, and that this Doctor may not actually be a doctor after all. He's not even a chiropractor.
How's it, Sonic?
It makes a noise. That's Sonic, isn't it?
And his TARDIS is...
TARDIS. It stands for Tethered Aerial Release, Developed in Style.
Well played, Russell. You had me going for a bit. Miss Hartigan runs a workhouse, a factory where children are put to work, which sounds like either a nightmare or a sensible plan for a sensible future in a sensible Britain. Actually, sorry, I should have said the word nonsensical 3 times, but either way. Miss Hartigan has had the hump with being overlooked by the rich men who fund the workhouses, which also seem to be coincidentally staffed by their bastard offspring, much like my food truck empire where lots of irritating Stam Finderlings review episodes of Riverdale while making you a Reuben sandwich. Oh, and Miss Hartigan is in cahoots with the Cybermen, who are looking to fill a new vacancy, the Cyber King. The Doctor finds info stamps, which are data storage devices that hold so much info that they can kill a Cyberman with a stream of compressed information, which does sound like trying to listen to 3 podcasts at once while doing your tax return. It turns out the Next Doctor is actually a teacher whose wife was killed by the Cybermen and who has mucked around with an info stamp and had information about the Doctor burned into his brain. So while he has to mourn for his dead wife, he'd probably be a great host for his own Doctor Who podcast. He rescues Rosita and throws himself into any situation without knowing the first thing about what he's up against. But once his memory returns, he remembers he has a son who's now imperiled along with many other children by Miss Hartigan's plans. She is press-ganged by her new allies into becoming the Cyber King.
Oh, for the love of God, have you no pity?
which then lays waste to parts of London. Also, it's good to be the Cyber King. It is an interesting episode, made great by its guest cast. David Morrissey was an actor who'd appear everywhere on British television, but then he was also in The Walking Dead for a couple of seasons.
I've picked up a lot.
Dervla Kirwan, who broke out in Ballykiss Angel and Goodnight Sweetheart in the 90s, makes for an icy villainess, sick of the pallid old codgers about the place.
Thank you, Doctor. Glad to have been part of your very last conversation. Now, delete them.
In the end, it was never going to be an actual next Doctor, but it's still a very fun romp for the most part.
For I say to you on this Christmas morn, bravo, sir! Bravo!
Planet of the Dead was screened around Easter in 2009, but there are no chocolate eggs or bunny rabbits. I checked twice. And so it was at that point that my interest waned. Then Michelle Ryan pops up in a character who seems part Lara Croft and part Catherine Zeta-Jones in Entrapment, particularly the bit where that movie's camera operator put their midlife crisis to good use. Lady Christina D'Souza is a top-class thief who hides out on a double-decker bus while the cops are chasing her. The bus ends up going through a rift in a tunnel and ends up on another planet light years away. So think yourself lucky that you only had to wait 5 minutes in traffic for the road to be cleared after the Purina truck overturned outside a boarding kennel. The Doctor is on board and he tells the scared passengers that everything will be alright. Well, almost alright. The planet is a desert, but that sand in your crack is actually what's left of the inhabitants of the planet, which is home to a type of flying metallic piranha. The Doctor puts the less attractive passengers to work while he goes on a long stroll with Lady Christina. Some bipedal alien flies are also trapped on the planet and help our heroes find a source of power for the bus. The aliens are quickly written out. As it turns out, neither of them was played by Jeff Goldblum, since he was either busy at the time or nobody thought to ask him.
Might I say, sir, it's an honour.
Did you just salute?
No.
On the Earth side, there's a unit contingent led by Captain Magambo and her slightly flaky scientific advisor, Malcolm, played by Lee Evans, with about as much restraint as you'd expect from Lee Evans.
He's gone.
On the bus, there's a cross-section of people who would be on a bus, including a pre-Get Out Daniel Kaluuya.
Hey, use this.
I said gold.
It is gold.
Oh, I saw you coming.
People who just want to get home to their ordinary lives. But crucially, it's not a packed bus at peak hour because the budget just would never stand for that. The story here is pretty ordinary, just getting the bus home before killer creatures attack. But the real story is the Doctor and Christina flirting with each other.
Worse it gets, the more I love it.
Me too.
Of course, in the end, the Doctor doesn't want Christina, an admitted thief, to travel with him since he's still finding things missing after that kleptomaniac Rose Bloody Tyler kept pinching from his priceless stamp collection. Michelle Ryan had found fame in EastEnders. By that, I don't mean she found a missing DVD in the Queen Vic, but became a well-known actress as a result of being in that show. She also had just been in a short-lived American series as the lead in the remake of The Bionic Woman. Can we just confirm that Jeff Goldblum was definitely not in this episode? No? Okay. Are you sure? Planet of the Dead is a bit of a time filler. But hey, the crew went to Dubai for a few days of filming. No lousy quarries for the first episode of Doctor Who to be made in high definition. The way the production was scheduled saw a bus sent over to Dubai, but it then was heavily damaged after being unloaded, which had the knock-on effect of the damage having to be written into the script and replicated by the CG effects team.
Look at the damage.
Sand, of course, got everywhere, but there are no mentions of the Doctor's sandy crack in the shooting script.
Did I say I hated you? I was lying.
It's okay, not great, not terrible, not amazing, not below average, not top-notch, but not bottom of the barrel. It's about as average as the rainfall for this time of year.
He will knock 4 times.
It's a god-awful small affair.
Waters of Mars premiered in October of 2009, where originally it was hoped it would be screened just before Christmas, but in the end would be an early Halloween-ish episode. Or maybe that was just a good time to screen this. The Doctor lands on the first Earth base on Mars, and things seem normal until the Doctor has a terrible realization that he knows exactly who these people are.
We're the first off-world colonists in history.
Because they will be lauded as heroes, but lauded posthumously. As far as history is concerned, they are deader than a paperboy's career path to senior milkman.
I should go I really should go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry with all of my heart.
On the base, there's Captain Adelaide Brooke and a bunch of other people, most of whom will become infected by something in the local water, which turns some people into a deadly creature of some sort. Plans to evacuate the base hit several snags along the way, but the meat of the story isn't the water creatures and their deadly takeover which will threaten Earth, but the Doctor's conversations with Adelaide, as he, bit by bit, lets out snippets of information. Basically, the crew will all die. The Doctor knows he should just leave well enough alone. But this is the Doctor we're talking about.
Everything else is in flux. Anything can happen, but those certain moments, they have to stand.
Talking to a time traveller with knowledge of your imminent death but won't tell you how or why or when isn't the basis of a great ongoing friendship. But then it couldn't, could it?
You die today.
One by one, the crew are dying off, all becoming what's known technically as a water-human amalgam of Mars, which is unfortunately known as WHAM. The Doctor does manage to save the day with the TARDIS, rescuing Adelaide and two of her crew and dropping them back at Adelaide's place on Earth. The Doctor, by this stage, has decided, fuck it, he's the last Time Lord, he can do whatever the hell he likes. Who the hell is going to stop him? It's not like there are any other Time Lords who are going to give him a poor performance review.
I'm the winner. That's who I am. The Time Lord victorious.
Being the Time Lord victorious means you don't have to hold doors open for people. The doors will open for you just through your sheer power.
Do you know who that leaves? Me! It's taken me all these years to realise the laws of time are mine!
Adelaide, disgusted by the Doctor's presumption, knocks him down a peg or two, and also makes absolutely certain that the person who's been watering her houseplants has chronic PTSD. Waters of Mars is a partly pretty ordinary story about a small group of humans under attack from some entity, which is one of Doctor Who's most well-used and usually effective story types.
It's hermetically sealed, they can't get in.
Water is patient, Adelaide. Water just waits.
It's not all that great, that part of the show. It's okay, but it's really window dressing for the Doctor tying himself into knots about not getting involved in something he knows he cannot change.
Because I've got to go.
Tennant's best work is when he's up against a strong actor, and here Lindsay Duncan more than provides an effective counter.
Who decides they're so unimportant? You?
She's someone who stands up to the Doctor when he becomes high on his own supply. The story of these specials is, really as far as the Doctor is concerned, is that the Doctor is the one who is truly special. Waters of Mars also featured Gemma Chan in an early role and former Neighbours and the Flying Doctor star Peter O'Brien. It also features a silly robot. Gadget, gadget. I mean, it was meant to be silly. It was meant to be annoying.
Gadget, gadget. Does it have to keep saying that?
I think it's funny.
I hate funny robots.
Russell T Davies said he loved Wall-E, but there's no idea if the robot was meant to be this shash wobbling about like an elderly breakdancer.
And for what?
It's a bit flimsy.
The viewers at home were nodding in agreement, since I don't think they felt like they were in on the joke. Adelaide originally survived, but all concerned felt that it didn't really work, and so Adelaide would take her own life, which would prove difficult to film in a way that conveyed what happened, and yet was acceptable for the early evening time slot the episode would likely run in. The first edits concentrated more on the action and the monster part of the story, but it didn't hit the emotional beats that Davies thought the script needed, and so director Graham Harper re-edited the episode again. Waters of Mars is the best of this bunch, just nudging ahead of the next Doctor, and almost exclusively down to David Tennant and Lindsay Duncan's scenes. These specials were written and made in 2008 and 2009, at which point the global financial crisis was biting hard to the point where all of a sudden there were crushing budget issues for one of the BBC's most successful programs at that time. At one point there was a chance the specials would have to have their runtime cut, or another option was to lose an episode altogether, or postpone the move to HD. From Planet of the Dead, the series was made in a higher resolution, but it still has the same video vibe thanks to the crew getting to grips with the workflow. Just as the show moving from black and white to colour brought new challenges, moving from standard definition to high definition also needed alterations to working practices. Lighting needs are different, any cheapness in sets is very apparent. When you work with computer effects, your effect sequences now need to be rendered at the higher resolution. And again, detail and lighting needs more work. Look in the mirror and think how handsome you are. Then put on your reading glasses and then look again, and suddenly you need a shave, your skin is all lumpy and there's a massive hairy forest growing out of your nose. These budget issues would be solved thanks to canny producers, as in the people who organise the production and the budget and get it made, while the writer does their thing.
My mouth and words come out, they don't make much sense.
Following the 2005 relaunch, Russell T Davies wrote more episodes than anyone else, but also performed sometimes quite substantial rewrites of other writers' work. The writers were often made aware from the outset that the rewrites would be part of the deal. Here, Davies would be credited as co-writer on those scripts from outside writers, perhaps better reflecting his final contribution to those episodes. While the other writers had been fleshing out Planet of the Dead and Waters of Mars, Russell T Davies was nailing down his big finale involving a two-part story outlining the return of one of the Doctor's oldest foes, the Master, and of Gallifrey.
See? Like a car. I locked it like a car.
The Master's human wife, Lucy, is in prison, but then she's taken to a ritual performed by cult members worshipping the Master, where they want to revive their fallen leader. Lucy bollockses all of this up. When the Master does return, he's not quite his usual level-headed self. Of course, for the Master, a sanity baseline is still as mad as a bag of wool toggles made from licorice. Now, the Master is no longer just a psychopath, but driven not just around the bend, but twisted, ingrown, curved in on himself, and otherwise just mentally contorted.
It is said that in the final days of planet Earth, everyone had bad dreams.
Meanwhile, everyone's been having bad dreams, so Wilfred Mott mobilises his fellow senior citizens to search for the one person who can help, the Doctor. The Master is captured by the not-so-billionaire, if that isn't redundant, Joshua Naismith, who's looking to take some alien tech called an immortality gate and needs the Master's help in making it work. Immortality is a wonderful thing, unless of course you have a very short attention span. Wow, those are some nice shoes.
Do you like it? I thought it'd be cleaner.
Cleaner?
The Doctor investigates and finds two of the technicians are themselves aliens, and that the whole thing is a medical device, which of course the Master uses to make himself into everyone. That is one way to win an online argument. Having the Master become everyone has its ups and downs. Shopping for hats would be much easier. It also makes Face ID pretty much useless. All through this, Wilf has been receiving messages by some woman, but without much context. And then, just as everybody is turned into the Master, some dude shows up making a passionate and rather spitty speech, which turns out to be Rassilon, promising that the Time Lords would return. In part 2, the Doctor and Wilf and the two aliens are dead in space. The alien salvage vessel needs repair, and this gives the Doctor and Wilf some time to just sit down and talk. Talk about what's going on. Talk about what's gonna happen.
He will knock 4 times and then you die. Well, that's him, isn't it?
It is great stuff from Tennant and Cribbins.
Sometimes I think a Time Lord lives too long.
Then we get to the major plot. The Master's shenanigans have somehow opened up the way for the now quite desperate Time Lords to return, led by an utterly ruthless reincarnation of Rassilon. The Master wants to turn himself into every Time Lord, while Rassilon wants to bring back Gallifrey, but in a way that's really quite inconvenient for everybody else on planet Earth. The Doctor weighs up the pros and cons, picks cons, and is helped by the Master using his power gained from playing lots of Street Fighter to send Rassilon packing. The Doctor's left with Wilf in the radiation chamber that, look, let's just go with it. The Doctor can save Wilf, but only at the cost of sacrificing his own life, which has been the ending of many a Doctor, yet here the Doctor is rather bitter about it.
But it's not fair!
Hey, I dig. One time I asked for a Transformers toy robot for Christmas, and all I got was a lousy GoBot. Lousy GoBot. Russell T Davies had written out the Time Lords because they seemed so out of date and fusty, like an elderly college dean still banging on about hippies 50 years later. Gradually, throughout the original series, Time Lords became less aloof and less godlike, and then we'd have more Time Lords susceptible to some form of ambition. As seen here, the Time Warriors turned them into a group who would sacrifice the entirety of creation for their own survival as beings of pure consciousness. Existing as a thought has its ups and downs. I mean, there's no such thing as waiting in traffic or having to worry about wearing a seatbelt, but at the same time, if you're a pub landlord asking a group made up of pure consciousness what they wanted to drink, and then they all say,
I think I'll have a beer,
then you know the night's takings are going to be rather disappointing. So after the big build-up of the Doctor pointing a revolver at various people, at which time the sound designers went a bit nuts with the sounding of the gun cocking every time he points it at someone different, the Doctor has to regenerate. But not before he goes on yet another victory lap.
Where are you going?
To get my reward.
Nods at his companions and his friends. I mean, if I was on my deathbed, I probably wouldn't ask the ambulance driver to take me to see my friends and acquaintances and then just nod at them. I mean, if I saw Alex Smelly, I'd give him the finger, but anyway, I digress. He sees the granddaughter of the woman he fell in love with as a human.
Was she happy?
Were you?
He nods to Mickey and Martha, now Mr. and Mrs. Smith. More Smiths with Sarah Jane and her son. Sets up Captain Jack. Visits Wilf and Sylvia at Donna's wedding. Gives them a wedding present of a winning lottery ticket. And then finally, in a prequel to the relaunched 2005 series, sees Jackie and Rose Bloody Tyler.
Look at this one! Oh my god, who's there? I'm on fire! Oh my god!
Parts of End of Time are a big bloated mess, like Robert Maxwell after he went for a dip, but it's redeemed mainly by Bernard Cribbins and David Tennant's scenes together.
I'm an old man, Doctor. I've had my time.
Well, exactly. Look at you.
Having the Master be everyone, well, it's a thought, isn't it? You know that phrase that often follows something really idiotic, but here we are. It's a thought, isn't it? John Sim, though, must have had fun filming dozens of variants of himself.
Standing there all noble and resplendent and decrepit. Think how much better you're gonna look. As me!
Sim here plays the Master totally insane by this point, and every time I see the scenes of the Master taking over everyone, well, I don't know about you, but I sure get a headache.
I will not die!
Timothy Dalton has the gravitas to play Rassilon, not the almost godlike founder of the Time Lords, but the ruthless dictator with his own version of an infinity gauntlet. But as with everything Rassilon owns, it's the gauntlet of Rassilon. We've previously had the sash of Rassilon, the rod of Rassilon, the key of Rassilon, and not seeing the telephone of Rassilon, the sticky tape of Rassilon, and finally the mini John Cooper works of Rassilon.
Tell the Doctor nothing of this. His life could still be saved.
Claire Bloom plays a character known as the Woman, who appeared to Wilf and was later revealed as a Time Lord who disagreed with Rassilon's plan. She's never named on screen, and Davies liked the fact that fans would speculate who she was. But as far as he was concerned, she was the Doctor's mother. They don't speak directly to each other, mainly because he hasn't sent her flowers on Mother's Day for about 800 years. We also have June Whitfield, David Harewood, and Brian Cox as the voice of the Elder Ood. It's interesting to read how this came together in a book by Russell T Davies and journalist Benjamin Cook, The Writer's Tale, which was email correspondence between the two over the production of Series 4 and these specials. It outlines Davies' process, and you could see the ideas forming as he's typing some random email to Cook in the middle of the night. Here, Davies has an idea about the glass doors, and then concocts the reasoning behind it, which of course gives the Doctor no option but to sacrifice himself. All of these specials featured a companion, just for the duration of the story. Most of the relationships work quite well, with the possible exception of the Doctor and Lady Christina. Maybe down to the fact that Michelle Ryan is basically playing a version of River's song, but without Alex Kingston's touch. So, the next Doctor was a fun Christmas romp.
His name, sir, is the Doctor.
Planet of the Dead just seems to have appeared and disappeared like a fax left in the sun despite its worrying lack of Jeff Goldblum. Waters of Mars has a split personality. It's a routine, people on a base show combined with the Doctor exploring what he has become. And End of Time. Part 1 is pretty decent, depending about how you think about Skeletor Master. But part 2 does also feel a little bit of a mess, like a canteen after a food fight. Ultimately, the specials are just a little disappointing compared to the high watermark of Series 4. They're not bad, we just don't get 5 standout episodes. Just a few that waver between okay to pretty good. Having a different companion each story was interesting enough. But in having so few episodes, each episode has to be grand and epic whether the story called for it or not. Well, the Daleks did appear briefly in one of the specials, but since when has that ever stopped us?
I don't want to go.
Should I stay or should I go now? Should I stay or should I go now? If I go there will be trouble, and if I stay it will be double. So come on, let me know.
In the end, the Doctor who didn't want to go does indeed go. This is the end for the 10th Doctor. I mean, Tennant would come back with Catherine Tate for 3 specials for the show's 60th anniversary.
Oh, a new one.
But starting with Series 5, another restart of the series, when Stephen Moffat would take over as showrunner and Matt Smith as the 1/1th Doctor. I'm sorry, that should be 11th Doctor. You know what I mean. If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.
Should I stay or should I go?